All
Oh,
right.
well, welcome. This is our space to talk about AI, latest happenings in tech. Isaac, background in computer engineering, fully vested in tech, both hardware, software, happenings of everything going on in the world. And I'll pass it to my guy, Kenneth.
All right. And my name is Ken. I'm just a big nerd. Huge background in computer science engineering and, anything, web, mobile, API, service layer, integrations, all the things. And I like to dabble into all different areas as well. So you might hear us talk about IoT or other things that are coming up in the space. But yeah, all things tech. I love it. I'm hooked up to a news feed. I'm constantly getting updates. That's
Yeah,
me.
that's one thing for sure. If you're rocking with us, you're going to have the full stack, both from engineering background. So we like to hit all the layers of the stack. So tune in. I really want to get into the Nvidia stuff we are talking about, but I do want to just like take a step back and
Okay.
quickly chat through some of these tools and things that we've seen in the past few weeks. From my perspective, a lot of those bigger unlocks have been like we know agents are here.
Mhm,
Agents are
mhm,
being seen as team members, and people are starting to build platforms for these agents.
mhm.
You mentioned some stuff on Genspark as well. You want to maybe touch on that?
Yeah, Genspark something that came up recently I heard about, but I haven't had too much workings with it yet. I didn't get to really mess with it. I just found out about it yesterday. And the thing with it though is that like if you go to it's genspark.ai, you go to the site, they basically have all type of things, whether it be chat, image generation, video, music. I think I dropped a link in the chat. I dropped a link in the chat for you. And basically with that, I noticed the thing that really drew my attention, right? Because it kind of seemed like it was a perplexity kind of thing, right? Like, you know how you've seen that perplexity computer kind of setup. And I'm not really sure if it's reaching into your actual device because I'm actually going through the web browser and I haven't actually downloaded an app or anything. So I need to investigate that a little bit. But I did notice they have what they call it. It's a Genspark Claw. And it's being advertised as a 24/7 assistant, research, slides, documents, and whatever else. I'm assuming that it's your own, basically, they're saying it's your own cloud computer. And so they can kind of do nice things where you have your own sort of cloud-based thing. If you want to stand up different web apps and things like that, and you want to demo it, you have your own sandbox environment. So it's almost like if you were to have on your local machine, you devved up something and did some dev tunnels, and then you're like, hey, sharing with the buddy, like, hey, go check this out. They do that, except like it's in a cloud-based form. So it's like, yeah, it sounds pretty interesting. I got to look at when you hear about these offerings, the first thing is like, okay, this is awesome. What's the token utilization and usage look like? Right. I have heard promising things that just the regular chat per se isn't going to drain your account of the amount of tokens you have. But when you start doing things like the claw and other stuff, right, it's going to start doing some of that. So yeah, I've yet to see because that was some of the things I heard about with Perplexity, right? The Perplexity computer. I was looking at the service offerings and I saw a quick demo, and it was like 10,000 tokens you get per month or something. Like, there's no way they're calculating tokens how we use tokens. Like, is that credits? Is it like 1 million tokens per credit? Like, is that what it is? So I got to dig into that. But the guy was basically saying that he's hit a lot of usage bumps on the regular sort of tier that he's on. So it's one of those that you have to go full out, do the whole 200 a month and whatever else thing, right? But if you're already doing Claude code, if you're already doing Codex, if you're already doing it, you know what I mean? It just adds up. So I really got to pick and choose kind of which stack you're on. But I mean, I'm going to check this out and give it a run. So
Yeah, it
hopefully
it
next week
kind of
I'll have an
it
update.
kind of looks like a or notebook LLM through Google's offering,
Okay.
which
Okay.
if you mess with notebook LLM,
Yeah.
it's kind of Obsidian hybrid, but you're tied into Google. But one thing Gemini doesn't have today is a layout like this where you
Mm,
can just quickly make slides or sheets or docs. Like
mm,
we know Gemini can do that, but there's no UI like this. I feel like this right here, this Genspark is a perfect cue for Google to capitalize on. And
yeah.
then maybe even introduce their version of OpenClaw, NemoClaw.
It's got to be coming at this point.
Yes. So Genspark actually looks cool, but it just 100% reminds me of a notebook LLM Gemini offering. But I do see they're using, what is it called? Open LLM.
Yeah, I'm looking
If
this out.
this, so they're
And
gonna have a
yeah,
cloud-based sort of Nemo Genspark Claw thing. It's gonna be interesting to see the pricing on that. Like you talk about
yeah.
the token count. Did you see there was another comment? So as data recording, like this is April 1st, like April Fool's Day, but no lie, there was Anthropic got their code not even
Oh
hacked,
man.
just leaked, right?
Oh man.
So now, like within 30
Yeah.
seconds, the internet, the community threw that thing into multiple repos. It's here forever. Like we're studying the code like we are the Bible at this point.
Dude, there's a
But
Codex one too. They're saying they
yeah,
leaked Codex as well.
really?
Like,
Oh
yeah.
man.
Like I don't know if it's fully legit, like the way they built out the Claude version,
Yeah.
but it's out there and it's in a repo and people are talking about it. And I'm like, this is insane. I don't know how they
Yeah,
got a hold of Codex though.
there was one post I saw of a guy that was looking at the cache of Claude because everyone's like, dude, the Opus, these tokens are costing a lot. And they found multiple cache misses. Like your token cached is supposed to be like 90% cheaper than the
Yeah.
actual, fresh token. Me designing an AI search through OpenAI's platform, what I realized is the combination to actually hit the token search on OpenAI is not possible with a vector store
Okay.
because the
Okay.
vector store ID is a unique identifier that changes your hash
Yep.
every time you make a request. So I was like
Ah,
building this thing, optimizing for cache hits, like trying to make sure everybody
yeah.
saved, and
Okay.
then realized like no matter what, I'm not even going to get a cache hit with the way they have vector stores set up. So I
Man.
wonder if Claude has something similar to the way OpenAI is doing it.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny because I was just hearing somebody talk about, RAG and that not being a thing, right? As far as like in the future, because all the like we're making so much more context windows, like the context size is getting larger. Like I think with Opus is what 1 million token context window. I know some of that has to be reserved for tool use, but the thing is, it's like we're gonna start throwing all this stuff at it. We're doing RAG, we're pulling all these different resources in, but it's like at some point you're gonna have somewhat of a hallucination where you're pulling in all these data sources on these things. And so you're gonna have to get more strategic down the line about how we're organizing what information we're pulling in to even give as context to these agents. So there has to
Mhm.
be some more sophistication there, usually on the enterprise side, right? Because if you're a normal user, like I'm not gonna go toss up 100 different data stores. Like that's gonna be involved in my chat. Not for me. But when you're dealing with that enterprise level and these source systems, legacy systems, all these different things, it can kind of get a little crazy.
I hope we do find a better alternative to RAG, like even testing different embeddings. Like the LLM is really susceptible to not even hallucinate, but not find the detail you want and
Mhm.
requiring you to search more and more and more versus like, well, in this case, right? If it's like a set of documentation, things like that, I have seen like Gemini is pretty good, probably because they're 1 million token context window. But the last time I tested this was GPT 4 or even 4.0, like smaller models, really small vector stores or rags, and those things were like you were getting like maybe 60% accuracy. And yeah, I was like, man, I don't really like rags. So I hope we do fix that because yeah.
I feel like it's gonna, and this will probably be more applicable for research. I'm not really sure, like on a live real-time API, the latency this would cause. But if you think about it, agents can also learn your data sources, whether structured or unstructured, learn things about them. And if you were to kind of group them in a way to where, let's say that there's an agent that kind of sits in front of it, right? That can kind of orchestrate. So it can get a request in and then give you the right summarized context. Kind of like if you think about compaction, right? How it takes and summarizes your chat and whatnot. if we were to do some kind of level of summarization on the relevant information that might be needed, and then return that back to a larger orchestration, right? So like if they're sitting on top of that, the orchestration agent now gets the report from the sub agent, and they can take that piece of context and add it as part of what it's going through. And so it can say, hey, well, we noticed this. What would you want to dig further into this record? And then you kind of can now go decisively to one source, right? If it gave a citation of, hey, this is the summary, these are the sources, these are the addresses of whatever, data source. Only problem is authorization, right? Authentication. Well, authentication would be fine, but authorization is like, can you be like, are you authorized to see this content? You'd have to put some good guardrails into the LLM at that point, right? Because they're not going to be per user. I mean, they could do it per user scope, but you have to give it some MCP tools that really like fine grain, like how it queries for that person. You can't just say, hey, go query this data source. Like, no, you need to actually put strict guardrails on like what user is getting what information.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
outside
the
of that,
good news is packages like FastMCP do support claims through their OAuth flow. So
nice.
you can potentially back it up. Assuming your OAuth flow is you validating the agent, it can create, or I guess use the tools specific to your role. We're also moving away from that. Like agents need their own role. Like we're almost
Yeah.
at the point where you need to register your agent as a user in your system
Yeah.
and or make sure that those API keys are scoped for those specific agents and then treat it like a server-side backend. The sub-agent thing concept is interesting because would you always have a supervisor agent be the orchestration and call a sub-agent like because it can do the validation or spawn multiple agents to cross-check?
Yeah, I think it's more of a divide and conquer, right? Because as these agents get more mature and compute gets faster for their computing and all that stuff, like, because think of it this way, it's like you need someone to say, like, even from code, right? Like, if we think about orchestration from code situation, like you will have some business logic and some things going on, but the orchestration has had a larger big picture view that can move things along the chain, right? And some things can be concurrent, some things need to be separate and sequential, but you don't have to put that load on the person doing the more fine-grained research, right? And I've actually seen GitHub Copilot see a lot of Claude Code do this, where they'll spawn off sub agents and they'll like go report, they'll do their investigation, come back. And it's just really the orchestration. You kind of you can give it the big picture. And so I'm not even saying that in the future it will be just orchestration to sub agent. It could be orchestration to sub agent. That sub agent is also orchestrating sub agents. Like we don't know how complex this is gonna get, at some point. But with that flow though, it's like it's really just the responsibility and concerns, right? The single responsibility. So if your responsibility to say like, hey, go retrieve all the data sources for this user, or give me a summary of all the data sources of this user in the context of what they did at work on Wednesday. Right. And so it could be all these different systems going in, and, there's certain agents that kind of know the groundwork of all these data sources. So when it reports back, it says, hey, they bashed into this building at 8 o'clock. And then they give you a timeline of like what they did from a physical standpoint. And then they could be like, hey, they committed to this repo and did these things. And like you have another agent that tells about the parking meter. It's like that can then get aggregated up to the holistic orchestration agent that has the big picture idea of what type of output you're wanting to give, right?
Yeah.
Like that's more closer to matching with the user.
So one thing that I was thinking about when you're talking about that is, you look at platforms like LangGraph and there's Strand and all these other platforms, Crew AI, where you can spin up sub agents and build them. From a code perspective, how do you gauge when it's necessary to spin up, 1, 2, or 10 agents? Like the scaling of that is an interesting piece of logic to nail down because it's such a unique case by case thing to say, I only need 1 agent or I need to scale up to 10 agents to go find what I'm looking for.
And the crazy thing is you got to do something. There's a couple variables in there, right? Because you could also have different types of agents for different type of output, right? Like a lot of these things, I think Perplexity computer, right? Their personal computer, that offering, they said they use all the models. They use like 4.6 to actually be the reasoning to orchestrate. They'll use these wanted to do something. They used a 5.4 GPT 5.4 to do something. Like it was doing certain things. I've actually started doing this into my code because I'm diving deep into pure local as far as my development tools, like local AI. I
Yep.
can run it in Docker, sandbox, everything. It's not we're about tokens and all that stuff. And what I'm finding is that you can use models for different things. So there's that variability, but there's got to be a benchmark, and it's going to be relative per model on at what point, if you have 20 tools, is that too much for it to hallucinate and decide, right? So what I started doing on a local project recently is I actually broke it into different domains where it's clear for like an agent. So for me, I don't actually choose when to spawn a sub agent. The orchestration agent actually is doing it. So from a code perspective, and I'm using the agentic framework by Microsoft. So it's all net based. And with that, what I'm able to do is I give it different tools. Like if it's, like you said, set goals, if you can have one that's actually going to your repo to check stuff, if it's going to like, they're clear domains. And I have probably 6 of them in that 6, probably 7. And the orchestration agent is going through each, like whenever needed. It's going to whichever one it needs, but you kind of give it the instructions of the tools to also, like you say, hey, what the user wants to know this, you have this tool available to you. But the tool is actually an agent, right?
Yeah.
That you're doing like an as tool or as function or whatever the extension is. I think it's like AI factory.create, and it's like a function.create. And so basically what I'm doing is it's an agent now that's kind of now talking to an MCP server I've set up locally. And so the orchestration doesn't know anything about the MCP. It just knows I have this agent and they're talking to each other in a way that's like conducive to, and it gives me the tool use back and all that kind of stuff. I know like what tool was used and it tells you like this agent or whatever. So that's kind of how I'm orchestrating it. And I feel like if there's clear domains, I think you could probably scale out a lot more, right? Because a reasoning agent could know I have these 20 domains and they're all separate, disparate systems, different tools. If someone's asking me about a profile, oh, okay, this is my profile agent over here. I know exactly where this is at, or this is my user base agent, and I'll go to that or whatever as a tool. So I kind of feel like the reasoning agent that's orchestrating can figure out which tool.
It's super novel. I feel like it's almost like an event-driven architecture, but your agent is controlling the events. Like you fire, forget, your sub-agents eventually come back and say, like, here's a response, this is what you want. But then you also, like your orchestrator, depending on the type of app you're building, like you could almost have the evals happen server side too. Like you could have that eval sub-agent be the final check before orchestrator sends back the client response, or go tell the sub-agent, go do more work, right? So
if it's not a real-time call, if it's something you can wait on, like research and that kind of stuff, absolutely. You should probably check Claude Code's code base to see how they're doing. I know they're spawning like crazy, and I don't know how they're figuring it out, but I'm gonna dig into that at some point. But one quick point though on that, have you seen, but people are using Codex to go do code reviews within the Claude Code now. They found a way to bake it into the system as like a hook. Now, I've actually been doing this already, but not as a hook. So to your point about the evals, if you have a separate agent that's different, right, from a different type of model, and you set it with the rules for the eval, that is like, back to your point, can you consider this done and can ship to the client or whatever output area, right? Because that eval is there and it's not the same agent that created it. So it will be more, the checks and balances will be there a little bit. So I think evals are going to be like strong evals, like being able to describe the intent. And then at that point, also like what makes that a successful request. I think having those guardrails in place, what is actually true or what is actually complete will be.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm gonna have to overlay this on the screen because I updated my teams and I can't share. But companies.sh, if you check them out, they're taking an approach of building your org chart for your agents. So in the case you're talking about, your supervisory agent or your orchestrator agent would be your manager, whatever. Then your sub agents are the ones doing the work. So per persona, like you're talking about, those claims can be employees with specific roles. But the crazy part about it too is I think eventual consistency is what we're looking for with these agents, right? Because if if your manager or whatever sends you to go do a task, 99% of the time it's not something that you're gonna get back right away, right? Like
Yeah.
they fire it, they forget, they do something else, you come back later,
Oh,
and
they
they're
don't
like, here
forget
you
though.
go.
No, I'm joking. They'll be at your inbox tomorrow. No,
Yeah, so I mean, we got to expect the same from the agents, especially if we want good results, right?
Mhm.
I do think speed is critical in things like banking and whatever, and
Yeah,
maybe that's
for
just not
sure.
the place for agents. Like I do still think there's a world where just software is still needed, right? Yeah, but yeah, these applications are crazy. I love the ideas of sub agents. Like that's where we are right now, but it also feels like the most exciting part because looking back, like using one model, we thought we could just use like one big mega model for everything, and it's crazy. But to your point, these smaller language models on the sub agents with really defined tasks are blowing the responses out of the water. Like they're able to complete really finite things. And now you're seeing that
100%.
spread through everything from Cursor to Claude through just chatting with your Grok or whatever. Like everyone's using sub agents now
Hmm.
to handle the results, and we're seeing better results.
100%. I've been blown away. I've been using GPT OSS, the 20 billion parameter, and
Yep.
I've had my tools scoped and I have it, the agent working with MCP, and the results have been great. Now, mind you, I'm not doing these crazy like workflows across tenants and boundaries and wild stuff, but it is giving me exactly what I need with precision and accuracy based on that model. But I will say, I mean, you said something earlier about we're gonna have to figure out a protocol, right? Because I really still don't, it's still not deterministic, right? And I have a security background, and for me, giving an agent the ability to go pull any information, regardless of user context, is going to be wild, right? Because again, it's
Mm.
like, yeah, that agent, now if it's just your business and they're an employee, like, oh, absolutely, like let that go. But if there's other employees interacting with that agent that also have scoped information, we're gonna have to figure out, I mean, does the agent now a type of service ID that, when it's running on the server, it can actually spawn up that ID. And then the user that requests it is actually able to do delegated permissions. So when you do that, you
Mhm.
say, okay, this agent's talking to this agent or this data source or whatever. You can then do an on behalf of token, right? So that it's okay. It's like I trusted that this user authenticated, but now I'm handling the authorization to call this other service. Let me do it on behalf of token to see what claims spawn up and if they even have permission to call that. And so it's going to operate under the guise of that new identity is established, right? Or the new authorization is established. So I think that pattern that works today, and I think that's good. But I do think, to your point, as we get more and more agents, is that really going to be scalable? Because in Azure land, it's like that's an app registration, right? Like your agent would be an app registration, and then it has the identity with it and whatever else. But basically, it's like having to connect. If you're like connecting to 20 different things, are you going to really have to go through that auth flow to connect to all those, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just kind of, it's kind of like you'd have to have a connector hub and just kind of like say you want to connect, and then it grants auth and does the permission stuff in the background. But
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be a need for that only when there's the human to agent interaction. If the agent's
Mhm.
just purely like an employee, I think for sure, like give them an identity, let them run with it because they'll have access to certain stuff and whatever else. But the moment you get into something like HR, right, or something like that, where it's like, hey, I can only pull records for this set of individuals, like then it gets a little bit dicey, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And then like what we're saying about tool hallucination. I mean, I've literally had 100 tools, and I feel like the hallucination for the limit of tools was a thing, but it's no longer a thing because of skills. So
uh,
when you have the skills and you have the policy as code defined, that's one way to limit the amount of tools that your agent has to worry about or your sub
mhm,
agent. But also through, let's say you're using JWT auth, you could pack the tools in the claims. Like you only
yeah,
have these sets of tools,
yeah,
assuming you have like a enterprise MCP or whatever.
100%,
That would
100%.
be another way to just like stop the agent from going too wild. And then your server side just validates it each time.
For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely an off piece we still need to figure out, but I think there's some ways around it for sure right now.
I like that tool as claims thing because that keeps it very clean. Because it's like
Yeah.
at that point they know what they can call and won't be able to call before they even going through the auth and get a 403 somewhere, right? So
yeah, the stopgap too
Yeah.
is you could quickly just pass a X MCP header and then have your server validate that.
Mhm.
If you don't want to set up, you know, some deep JWTs. What else is going on right now? I feel like what I'm seeing is a lot of the company stuff spinning up. I think Jack again has some plans for moving middle management out, let the agents do it. Again,
Hey, what? I didn't read that. Hold on.
that's a cue to the sub agents.
I was reading. Yeah,
that was. I didn't fully grasp what he was or what the strategy was, but he released another paper. Maybe we can throw it on the screen, discussing how what they already laid off how many people
40%
last month.
I think, right? 40%. It was like 40%. I'm pretty sure.
But if I was understanding this headline properly, the document was alluding to the agents doing the middle management. So I was thinking, like, does that mean that humans, like the agent orchestrating what work needs to be done, you know, think about from a Scrum Master PM perspective.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, well then I guess if you figure it out from that piece first and you still have humans doing the grunt IC stuff, like you've actually created a unlock rather than a bottom-up approach, because the agents can do the IC work. We already know that, but can you manage it?
So they must be using Claude Cowork. That sounds like Claude Cowork to me. I don't know if you used it yet, but it's
no. How's that experience?
Oh man. So we'll stay on this thread of the middle management, but here's what I'll give an example because I've been thinking about. It used to be when you want to pitch ideas to like a perspective, like a new client, right? You'd have to like go in and like, hey, do some slides or like run through some stuff or talk about it, theorize about the thing, right? Or do like a Figma layout or some kind of high fidelity prototype, right? But now we're in a different space where code moves a lot faster, obviously. And so it can also be thrown away faster, right? You don't have to worry about like this thing I created, it's my baby. No, it's like now it's like, okay, I created it. This whole approach didn't go work. Let's get a new one. So refactoring is fast. So that being said, I noticed this when I did web design, when I first started my career. You show a client something, they're like, their eyes light up like, oh yeah. But then the ideas generate like, oh wait, and we can also do this. And we can also do that. But now your posture in the conversation is different. It's no longer, hey, do you want a website? It was like, hey, actually, yeah, I like this. We already got that established. Now, can we add these things? So it shifts the conversation forward through a whole couple steps. So I thought about that and I was like, there's a couple companies I know that don't have a mobile app presence. And so I quickly had Claude Cowork. I said, hey, this is the website. This is what their business is about. I gave it very minimal details. And I was like, I want to create a mobile app that demonstrates the functionality. Help me come up with some features. I gave it a couple features, gave me also whatever else would be helpful in this industry. And it broke out all these things into tasks. You saw it working. I saw it working. And it basically went through the website. It grabbed real names of people to put into the prototype. It gave, because I showed all fake data and stuff as far as like the actual like industry level stuff. And it came out with a crazy amount of like, I had like, 10 screens of whether it be like your dashboarding, the client facing stuff, like all these things after asking me a couple questions. And then I said, okay, well, can you create mockups in HTML and then give me, well, he created HTML for the mockups and I also had to do a spec, right? So then I took those two artifacts over because the HTML file is interactive. You can go click through the screens, but like, man, this is good. Like one shot. And I took it over to Claude Code and Claude Code built it out into an iOS app, one shot, like based on that feature and the HTML, right? I gave Claude Code even more minimal detail, you know what I mean? Because it has a spec and everything. Like, hey, read this spec. Here's the mockups. I worked with Claude Cowork to do this goal, and it just did it. And then within like an hour, I had working demos on a simulator on my computer. I video capture of it, sent it to the leader of the organization. So, hey, I'm not sure you have a mobile app presence right now, but this is what We got this actual app. If you wanted to run it locally, let me know. I can do test flight and whatever. We can get it on your phone. And if the engagement was like the ideas that were flowing and stuff going off, because some people, small businesses, are like, what do I need a mobile app for? They don't even know why. So my wife actually had me think about this idea. She said Steve Jobs was like, hey, the customer doesn't know what they want yet. Like, and so when she said that, I was like, that's a good quote. That is right. That is correct. Show them what they want. Show them what they want. So yeah, man. That's Claude Cowork. So, but think about manual management though, right? If you're a leader at an organization and you're saying you have I don't know, what would be a good example of, let's say you're in your engineering department, because we're all familiar with that. And we're saying, hey, we want to have a couple apps spun up. We want to see this kind of growth rate and adoption of our platform. Give the Claude Cowork a guarantee it will come out with some stuff, tasks and whatever else. You take all that stuff down, all the artifacts, it does deep research. It gives you market analysis, the target markets, or like a potential growth in the market. It can tell you how much the revenue is today, how much of a gap there is. Like, it does all this stuff. And then you just take that and just feed it out to the agents, like, or the ICs, if you will. So really, I kind of see it. Think about what a manager's going to do, right? He's going to figure out what team member does the specific type of work. He knows what his team members' weaknesses and strengths are, who does what, where the areas are, what is the acceptance criteria for his goal at that level.
Okay. So yeah, the workflow on the Cloud Cowork side. So I use Cloud Code, and generally on the research side, spending hours, days, whatever, prompting. But you're saying do the ideation or prompt experience through Cowork, and then take the output and feed it into code and just go at that point.
Exactly. And this is where I'm drawing the line. If it's purely an engineering thing, like I'm dealing with some infrastructure, some actual code build out, adding new features that I already know about, I don't need any outside information on this pretty standard thing, I'll run with that. But if I'm going to brainstorm and figure out what are gaps in the market, what will set my app apart from other places and things, Claude Cowork is that product manager that's like, hey, I've done the research. Here's your competitors. Here's what they offer. And it threw this in like a table for me for like a different scenario I was asking about, trying to scope features for a new app. And it gave me all that information, man. I didn't even ask for some of the stuff. It literally gave you a product strategy. It gave me a product strategy. It gave me sensible timelines. Well, you can give it like the time frame you want, but it gave me the milestone releases, the phases. It gave me the subscription model, right, of like the pricing tiers. And there's actually logic and math behind that, because people do that today, right? But you have like a person in marketing and sales, and you have your person in finance, and they're talking and they're working out the price points or whatever. All that was done in Cowork. So it did all the product strategy right there. And I gave it my vision, and it broke out a product strategy. And the things I was fuzzy on, it did research on, and included that as well. Right.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Man.
No, that's really cool. And then because of the tools, you could still tie it into your Drive or your OneDrive, whatever. Because I think maybe 6 months ago, before MCP was really at scale, the company had it tied in. Only Google could get access to Google Docs, right? Only Copilot could get access to OneDrive. But now with tools, anybody can get access to anything, including your GitHub. Everywhere. So it's like, if you want to use Claude, you definitely can. I think I got to explore it more. I use Claude Code, but for personal, like quick chats, I'm on Grok. For ideation, Grok's very limited in that approach, where it is still very ChatGPT 2024 experience, just interface talking. They do have projects, but there's no actual desktop app, no way to really tie it into more than just some like really base tools. And I think I can get away with I don't know if I would need the Cloud Soup or whatever. I can get away with just $4 a month, use it for ideation, and then feed that into my Cursor, because I still love Cursor as like go-to, especially now that they also have the Subagents in the platform. It feels very nice to have the IDE in front of your face.
Yeah.
And then orchestrating those calls.
And they said, I don't know if you saw this research, they said Cursor actually gives a approximately 20% better output than Claude Code does for its own model. I don't know what they did. I don't know if this is true. I saw it, I'm running through X and I'm seeing all the people, tech leaders talk about stuff. And I saw that come through and I was like, wait a minute. But it could be a cursor back sponsor, but it intrigued me to at least look into it. And I think that might be a thing. So there's the cursors, the harness, we're figuring out the harness has power as well. The models are good, but the harness is almost equally as important. I'm finding out.
And that's why everyone was really excited about Cloud Code at first, right? Because the way it was doing subagents in your terminal was kind of the first view that we had of that. Like it was,
no one was doing it. Now I feel like they're coming to parity. Even like GitHub Copilot, see it. Like people are coming up to it, but Claude Code was the break glass. They just shattered things up, and everyone's like, "Oh crap, we need to get on board." That was the moment. So,
and it's crazy how quick we forget, man. Right now, this stuff's moving so fast. Like where we're at 6 months ago, when maybe there was a few tools on the street, and now every single thing has a tool. We've completely unlocked agents through MCPs faster than it took organizations to move from monoliths to microservices.
we're talking about agents and that technology, but what's it doing to the software engineers?
They're going crazy right now. Like they don't know where to look. Speaking for myself and what I see, it's boots on the ground, you're developing, you can stay heads down, keep your current path, knowing that you're less efficient, but maybe you're holding on to an ego. Or you can take the approach of things aren't changing, they have changed. What are those gaps that I have in my knowledge that I need to understand and uplift and move forward? But then there's also just a lot of noise, right? Everybody 5 years old and up is building an application. They have different ways of looking at things. There's all these new unlocks, all these new tools. Some of them are free, many of them are not. And you have to like pick and choose. For me, I'm staying really close to protocols, things like MCP, things like A2A with agents, things like skills and agent MDs. These protocols are going to drive the way we move, and the protocol is going to stick through the adoption of who picks it up, who's talking about what. So staying on those protocols is kind of where the unlock is. And then the mind shift for me from an architectural lens with my cloud architecture experience, it's almost like reevaluating how you would design software, knowing that the underlying patterns that were applied at the infrastructure level are now being applied in the actual software level of a given app or a given Lambda or instance because of what we were just talking about with these subagents. Like you're still using orchestrator patterns, things like that, but you're calling out to external services sometimes within your own app domain. And then how do you create that bound around your subagents? I've actually just been kind of focusing more on the architectural stuff there, that lens. But you'll be working on a project and like, to your point, right? You can spin up iOS app in 30 seconds, but then like there's questions like, oh, well, we actually don't use this stack, or should we be introducing this to the code base? But those are problems we shouldn't be discussing anymore. The code is too cheap to worry about a while loop versus a for loop at this point.
It's a paradigm shift.
Like you need to know it. Like if you want a job, I still am not going to hire you if you can't do some technical analysis and understand that stuff. But assuming you meet that bar and you're working with your coworkers, I don't think that's what the conversation should be. The conversation needs to be, how do we want to document these agents? How do we want the agents to succeed in our code base? Should the code base be optimized for human readability or agent readability? Like the repositories need to be cleaned up. When you're dealing with monorepos as well, how much of that context is the agent taking in because of the way it's structured versus, hyper-focused, isolated micro repos or whatever. All of these new challenges are showing face because of our old patterns of doing things. And we have to like basically turn everything on its head and analyze if what we were doing is what we should still be doing. And then finding those gaps too, like there's developer enablement pieces that that devs don't like to do. There's blocks that devs put in. You look at code reviews, right? If you can at cursor at, Codex, whatever, and have it go open up a PR, you are the bottleneck, right? Like what's your process for running code reviews, ensuring you have good
At
health
scale.
checks, integration tests, everything enough to enable you to take the final look and then click accept and merge. I think what I'm seeing is we're almost afraid to merge agent code.
Yeah.
Maybe some of it looks alien to us or it's too much. I think I've actually reduced the amount per PR too, because there's a piece of it where developers like, man, this is 2,000 lines of code. And you can mitigate that, like 0 to 1, sure, you're gonna have 20,000 lines of code. Like it's gonna go in, make sure you don't have any keys. But after that, like these smaller, minute changes could just be more frequent PRs that allow people to feel good about it. But you're still gonna roadblock your team if you can't get your PRs approved fast enough, because you could be working on your third feature and your first PR hasn't been merged in, right? So teams really have to look from an organizational standpoint, how they want to handle those nuances in their team. But then from an inflection standpoint, where are the gaps that I have that I need to adjust to fit this new world of working with LLMs and agents?
For sure. 100%. I mean, because I've seen this report since Ada started writing code at mass scale at these larger companies now. And I've heard people talking about the bottleneck of like, dude, when you have agents that are cranking out these PRs, like on GitHub, they have the agents tied into the PR. You can just assign it and it gets it done. And it's like they found the bottleneck really fast of like, I know some open source frameworks that talked about this. And like, they're like, hey, we don't have enough humans to go through and read all that stuff. We are the bottleneck. And what I did on one of my teams recently is that I created a skill for a code review. And it's a separate model than what everyone's using. And you can choose your own basically, but it's attached to the GitHub Copilot CLI. It's a skill. And what it does is I gave it some of the persona things that I really look out for, but also give me a high, medium, and low, right? And I encourage people, be able to run this locally. And because you can create the skill, like it does tool to grab the diff or look at a PR that's remote or whatever. You can change the modes of it. But key is, it's like, can you go look at that output of the high, medium, lows? Can you read through it and understand? And I think that's kind of where we're going to have to go. Like, it's going to be too much to absorb. And I know Peter Steinberger, the one who created the OpenClaw, right? He said, someone asked him, so you going viral because you don't look at the code anymore. And he's like, yeah, that's mostly true. He's like, I just don't think you need to look at all the code. You need to still read the important parts of the code. And that stuck with me because I'm like, okay, do I really need to look at this CSS property on the UI to tell it like, okay, did I use a flex wrap versus no, like not really. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so that being said, do I also want to check the auth code? Absolutely. Right. And so now it's kind of like our job to be able to kind of infuse our persona into a code reviewer that's repeatable and shareable across our team. So that way we can reduce that bottleneck. So the bottleneck really isn't going through, the lines of code that are written, but it's like, hey, what got flagged? What do these things mean? Is this category, this is medium. We want to address this now or later. And, not soon we're going to have tooling that can auto import some of that stuff later. But, it's kind of one of those things where, we're going to have to adjust our thinking. Because even like you just said, right, a skill set that wasn't as prominent or in our face of a need is now in our face. Like, can you slice and dice features and work in a way where you can have small PRs, right? Because we've gone through the journey. When I was a junior, I probably would have lumped a lot of stuff into one or whatever. But as a senior now, I'm able to kind of quickly look and slice up the work and say, hey, I can do these 3 pieces of code or these 3 features. They won't touch each other in a way where there's a lot of conflict. If you have a merge conflict on like, hey, adding this dependency here, like that's really easy, right? But if you're actually working within the same file intensively like that, you don't want to do that, right? So can you do that? Can you slice the work in a way where you can fire 5 of these things off at the same time? That's going to be a skill set. That's a skill set that people have today that's going to really shine in this new era. So
man, when your sub agents are making micro PRs on your existing problem. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah. I started doing work trees now for this whole entire reason of like, hey, running work in parallel. This is like, man, it's needed.
All right. Last thing we need to touch on, the big dog, Jensen, Nvidia. There's so much happening in that space. Listening to the Lex Friedman podcast with Jensen, CEO of Nvidia, man, he basically opened my eyes to not even. So first of all, the guy's a collaborator. Like you can tell full and through, like he's bringing
For sure.
everybody. But the entire economy is moving with him. The amount of resourcing and compute and all that kind of stuff, understanding that, you know, basically everything's running on CUDA. And I mean, there are AMD graphics, things like that, but these data centers are all NVIDIA. Like if you want a good data center, if you want the Apple of data centers right now, you're taking a NVIDIA stack. And the full integration has gone way past GPUs at this point. Like
full racks.
yeah, it's basically building like ASICs. Like he's building his hardware dedicated for the rack installments to be plug and play and scaled up to n number of racks. Like I did not realize that NVIDIA was moving like this. The last GTC even was cool, but I was just like, man, like, okay, so if we're moving to building these entire racks, these data centers, everything's being stood up. There's still like the load balance challenge, serverless compute, right? As you scale, are you multi-regioned? You know, at what point do you shift load here and there? And that's an interesting problem to have at this scale. It's almost like the same problem that energy companies have to deal with, right? But now with token compute.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, man. I just kind of look at like again, like you mentioned, the problems he's having to deal with and solve. But you know, there's a couple of things that I took away even outside of that because you're looking at how he's operating it, and he mentioned like, hey, I don't have one-on-ones with my folks. Like there's information that needs to be shared, and like, why do the telephone game? Get everybody in there that needs to be in there. And he's like, I'm relying on the people that don't need to actually be there. They could be doing their own thing, but if they need to be paying attention enough to where if there's something they need to chime in on, they do. And if they don't, I'll call them out. And when he said that, I was like, man, that's a whole different paradigm and structure. And then you look at like the big bets he had, right? The conviction they had and stuff, and having to face shareholders, even though it wasn't gonna be profitable. Like we talked about the CUDA thing, right? And the investment that it took. And I mean, it paid off. I mean, now granted, I'm sure a lot of investments that companies and people make, you know, some of them do bite the dust. You got to know when to pull the plug. But the thing is, it's like, man, it really put into my perspective of like when you have that level of conviction and strategic foresight to see what's on the horizon that others may not see yet, be able to take that big bet and moving forward can pay dividends. And like, how do you steward that? Right.
Yeah,
like,
and that long too. Like his vision was from 1998, right? Like
crazy.
he deserves some credit for that. That's insane, man.
100%.
But it's good to see that there was a conversation on the open source community, right? Like you said in the very beginning, local LLMs, I'm fully on board with that too. Like my objective is totally to be able to run your own LLM workloads offline with the things you want. Because, you know, the duality of technology, right? Like I would love a local Alexa in my house because it's mine, right? But that's not the case in the current landscape. So it's like now you're also offloading your code, which in many cases is your proprietary knowledge, feeding it back to the LLM who already has scraped human knowledge, but now it's taking your
IP.
So I do think the local piece is super important, and the conversation on open source and, you know, creating like Nemo Cloud, which is a secure, it's enterprise secured open cloud, just because everyone sees open cloud is now this like next phase of what we should be doing. But yeah, then just releasing LLMs, like you said, the OpenAI was it their OSS model?
Yeah, yeah.
You've
The
been
open source
enjoying
model
that?
they have. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's cool that we are getting open source models from these big tech companies. I don't know what happened to Meta, like Llama. I don't know what they're doing at this point,
Llama's
but
out there. Llama 4. It's out there. It's
I
supposedly it's
thought we would
good
at
reasoning.
least be I thought we would at least be at Llama 6 by now. But we have some stuff from Jensen coming out. A lot of the other LLMs are Chinese based. But yeah, the US has traditionally so far as part of this community been really good with open source software, but not so great with open source LLMs. I hope we can see a change in that here soon.
Well, one quick note though, if you look at things like auto research and some of the capabilities, you look at was it Turbo Quant with the whole Google thing of being able to shrink down the amount of basically you get more bang for your buck out of the local LLM when it comes to compressing it down, but still being able to kind of operate as fast and do all things. And then you think about the local training that you can do on models now, right? And so it's almost like right now I'm talking about building my own local harnesses and stuff using an open source one. But honestly, you might enter into an era where it's going to be easy to train your own LLM. Like, because you can right now, like, but you know, you can get into Llama CPP and do all the whatever stuff you need to. There's a lot of Python you can run to kind of get your agent. I saw a video where someone trained it to just say hello world or something. And it said, okay, hello. And then it finished with world. You can start training it, but at that size and scale and the amount of training data and all that stuff, that's crazy. But we see distillation happening, right? Where these smaller models like the minis and all that stuff, a lot of stuff's getting trained from these larger frontier models. So you start thinking about that and add these pieces together. It's like, will we be able to train our own local LLMs to be able to run and handle all workloads specific to our persona and personality? And then we're not offloading all of our IP for everything.
For interest, you may want to train your own model, the
Yeah.
right one for the job.
Because when they pull these tools, I felt this. You know, Claude Code went down. I usually kind of start my morning early in the morning and like do a couple like projects to kind of like stay up on things and get the muscle memory going. And it's really just like it went out, and I felt at some point like, oh snap! Like I was writing all code by hand pre-December, but now I had a slight moment of like, oh man. Oh, well, I'll use Copilot CLI instead. I'm like, hold on, man. Like, let me get in here and write the code, right? What happens when subscriptions get way too high and get inflated? Or, you know, it's a harder barrier to entry to get to some of these tools, right? Like having your own local ones can offset that. Like if I have my own local harness, right, of code generation, like would I really be phased? Or when my subscription, I max out tokens or for whatever reason, right? I can, oh, okay, well, I'll fall back to whatever else. It's kind of good to have that security as well, because
That has been my limitations is like, you know, I'm all for using Cursor or whatever, but then trying to do stuff locally. So I have an M4 Mac, 48 gigs, a RAM. So I can load
you do everything you need to,
some
man.
good models, right? But
Yeah, you can do everything you need to.
it doesn't look good. It's going to be really slow, or you just won't be able to handle the complexities that you want. So then you always have to fall back. So
Yeah,
Apple, these
yeah.
M5 Max, these Ultras, like these things need to shine. So
Yeah, we'll
we're
see how they
here. The
do.
local LLM is like so needed right now.
Yeah. Are they still like it was a rumor? Are they for sure baking it in now? Or what do you hear? Like, you heard any updates on that?
Honestly, Apple rumors are always facts.
Yeah, yeah. They're not rumors,
They
they're
have
leaks.
been. Like if I hear an Apple rumor, you're like, okay, but then it always comes out to be true. So at this point, I'm just
Yeah.
like, if I hear it, I don't know who leaks stuff at Apple, if it's themselves, but
Yeah.
I've never heard more leaks than
Propaganda.
Apple leaks, and they're always like true. So yeah, we should see M5 Ultras. They're gonna skip going to like M4 Ultra. So these chips, not sure what they're gonna do with RAM. I have heard that price increase will only be 200 compared to
Really?
what we are seeing for RAM
That'd be surprising.
prices. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
it might be a good move at this point. I think mid-June, maybe July release sort of thing. So
Hope
you
they
could get
figure
your
out
M3
production.
Ultra or wait for an M5 and maybe pay 200 more. So
I hope they figure out production, because what happened to Mac Minis was crazy.
yeah,
Like the sellout to where like now you have to wait like a couple months to get it. I'm like, that's crazy to me. Like at least in my area where I was at. So I mean, it didn't get there right away, but progressively, like right now, it's probably on back order to like for a couple months.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't get something until like May, probably like late
Yeah.
May or June. So hopefully they
Yeah.
can
I'm
figure
interested
out
in
production.
the ability to daisy chain too. Like,
Oh yeah,
one thing I didn't
yeah.
realize until I was like researching a bit was technically you can daisy chain Mac minis and ultras. Like you don't
Really?
have to have like all minis or all ultras.
Huh.
And it says something about maybe if you find really cheap compute, like some
Yeah,
Mac minis are only what 16 gigs
yeah.
and you can find them for like $400. If you want to stack them, like you could create
That's
your own piece, right?
That's crazy. I didn't know you could go between studios and minis like that though. I didn't know that. So like he's like, hey, I want to add offload a little bit to this, whatever. Like you could literally stack that and connect those to work. That's
Yeah,
I
so
didn't know that.
there was a post I saw of a guy showing he had like 5 Mac minis combined, but one of them was like an ultra. And I was like, "Oh,
Interesting.
you can do both?" So that was kind of new to me. But then also what
Interesting.
I saw is there's a company called Teeny Grad. They
Mhm.
make their own AI hardware. Basically, we're back in the era of mining at this point. So you
Mhm.
can buy their compute, ship it to you, boom, that's your computer for AI. What they did is they opened up a Thunderbolt. So there's like an eGPU. So you can
Okay.
have your GPU sit on your desktop and connect Thunderbolt into your Mac and offload your compute there.
Interesting.
And they just said Apple had approved their driver for both AMD and NVIDIA graphics cards. So with that knowledge too, it kind of makes a case for you can slowly start building your own custom boots and not
That's
have to wait for
crazy.
like the latest and greatest hardware. So
That's crazy. The repurpose value is insane because now you don't have to give up your old one, right? Like
yeah,
it just adds on. Like it's actually an investment to your future in any way, right? Because whatever you bought today, you have available for you tomorrow on your new device as well. Like
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
nice. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We're in a new era, man. That's a new hardware kick that's gonna go because normally you would just move devices. Now just stack them together, man.
Yeah. New era, man. Yep, that's us. We'll close out here.
Cool,
Ken,
cool.
appreciate you.
Yep. Thanks for your time, man. And yeah, this was a good one.
Yep. And yeah, everyone take care out there. Stay safe, rest up, and we'll see you in the next one.